They chose her to die on a cold morning when the desert wind still carried the ashes of old wars, believing that erasing one Apache woman would keep history clean and quiet. Her hands were bound, her strength drained by days of hunger and fear, and the land she had once called home watched silently as men prepared to end her life as if it were nothing more than a duty passed down through generations. But far beyond the circle of judgment, one rancher rode hard through dust and memory, refusing to let the past repeat itself again. Before the story continues, take a moment to pause. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of one human being to stand against cruelty, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel Wild West Tale. Your support keeps these stories alive. The Apache woman had not always been a prisoner. Once, she moved freely across wide valleys and red stone ridges, her footsteps as familiar to the earth as rain. Her childhood was shaped by survival and stories, by elders who spoke of a time when their people lived without fear of ropes and rifles. But history is not gentle, and it does not forgive easily. As settlers arrived and borders hardened, her people were slowly stripped of land, dignity, and choice. By the time she was grown, survival meant silence, endurance, and learning when to lower the eyes and when to run. The accusation against her came suddenly, whispered first, then shouted. A ranch had burned in the night. Cattle were missing. Blood stained the sand. Someone needed to pay, and she was the nearest symbol of an enemy they still feared. No proof was demanded, no mercy discussed. Old hatred rose like a familiar song, and the decision was made quickly, as if they had been waiting years for an excuse. They called it justice, but it was fear wearing authority. As she was dragged across the desert, her body weakened but her mind remained sharp. She knew this place. She had hidden here as a girl, had laughed among the rocks, had buried loved ones beneath the same sky. The cruelty was not only that they planned to kill her, but that they would do it on land that remembered her as a child. She carried grief quietly, refusing to give her captors the satisfaction of tears. Her silence became her armor. Far away, beyond the line where the desert softened into grazing fields, lived a rancher who had learned long ago that history was written by those who survived, not those who were right. His land had been hard-earned, not stolen, passed to him by a father who believed in respect over conquest. He had grown up hearing stories of violence from both sides, of raids and revenge that never truly ended. And unlike most men of his time, he listened to those stories not with pride, but with shame. The rancher's life had been shaped by loss. His wife had died young, his child with her, leaving him alone with fields that demanded work and nights that offered no comfort. He found peace in routine and distance from people, believing solitude was safer than connection. But solitude did not erase memory. Years earlier, he had watched an innocent Apache family driven from land that was never truly taken by force, only by paperwork and guns. That image never left him. When word reached him of a woman condemned without trial, something inside him broke open. It was not courage that pushed him into the saddle, but guilt mixed with responsibility. He had done nothing before, had told himself survival required silence. This time, silence felt like murder. He knew riding toward her meant risking his land, his life, and the fragile safety he had built. But doing nothing would mean becoming part of the story that ended her life. The journey across the desert was unforgiving. The sun burned, the wind cut, and doubt followed him mile after mile. He questioned whether one man could truly stop what an entire group had already decided. He wondered if arriving too late would haunt him worse than never going at all. Still, he rode, driven by a belief that history only repeats when good people step aside. The place of execution was a shallow clearing surrounded by stone and silence. Men stood in tight formation, their faces set, their resolve borrowed from tradition rather than conscience. The woman was forced to her knees, her strength barely holding her upright. She stared at the ground, not in surrender, but in preparation for death. The desert held its breath. When the rancher appeared at the edge of the clearing, disbelief rippled through the group. He was known to them. A man of land and cattle, not conflict. He did not shout or draw a weapon. He dismounted slowly, placing himself between the woman and those who had chosen her fate. His voice carried across the sand, steady and unafraid, reminding them that killing her would not heal old wounds, would not bring back the dead, would only add another name to a long list of regrets. They argued that this was the way it had always been done. He answered that the way it had always been done was why the land was soaked in blood. They claimed she was guilty by blood and history. He answered that guilt without proof was nothing more than fear dressed as justice. The tension stretched thin, every second heavy with the possibility of violence. The woman lifted her head for the first time, her eyes meeting the back of the man who stood for her. She did not know his name, did not know why he had come. But in that moment, hope stirred painfully inside her chest, almost unbearable after being buried so long. She did not beg. She simply existed, strong in her silence, letting his courage speak for both of them. The standoff lasted longer than anyone expected. Some men shifted uneasily, uncertainty creeping in where confidence once lived. Others tightened their grips, unwilling to release their hatred. The rancher knew he might not win. But he also knew that even losing could leave a mark. Even dying in her place would force them to remember that not everyone agreed with what they were about to do. Finally, a choice was made that surprised them all. The woman would not die that day. Not because they believed her innocent, but because killing her now would mean killing the rancher too. They told themselves it was a compromise, but deep down, something else had changed. Doubt had entered the space where certainty once ruled. The woman collapsed as her bindings were cut, exhaustion finally claiming her. The rancher caught her before she fell, lifting her weight without hesitation. That simple act, human and unguarded, carried more power than any argument. It reminded everyone watching that she was not a symbol or a story, but a living person. The days that followed were not easy. The rancher took her to his land, knowing full well the danger it posed to both of them. Rumors spread quickly. Some saw him as a traitor, others as a fool. Supplies were withheld, threats whispered. The woman recovered slowly, her body healing faster than her trust. She had learned that safety could disappear overnight. Yet something fragile and extraordinary grew between them. Not romance, not savior and victim, but shared humanity. He gave her space, dignity, and choice. She helped where she could, tending land she once would have feared. The silence between them became comfortable, filled with understanding rather than suspicion. Over time, others noticed. A neighboring family offered help. A trader spoke her name with respect. The story of what had happened spread. Not as legend, but as a question. Had they been wrong all along? Could history be challenged, not with violence, but with conscience? The woman eventually chose to leave, not out of fear, but purpose. She returned to her people, carrying proof that mercy still existed beyond their suffering. The rancher watched her go, knowing he might never see her again, but certain that the choice he made had already changed him forever. Years later, when the land told new stories and children asked about the old days, there would be one moment spoken of quietly. A day when death was expected, but life was chosen instead. A day when one man refused to let history repeat itself. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that even one act of courage can echo through generations, please take a moment to like the video, share it, and subscribe to Wild West Tale. Your engagement helps keep these stories alive for others who need hope. And before this story ends, I invite you to comment below. Tell us whether you believe one person can truly change history, and what this story made you feel. Your words matter. Because sometimes, the past only loosens its grip when someone finally dares to say no.